Yeah, I mean, this just dropped today. Now, this was a story that came out. She was rumored to be in the new Crystal Lake series. What was it like, guys? Like a couple of weeks ago, they
Yeah.
started. Yeah, and then to just today, about I think earlier today, this afternoon, Linda Cardellini has officially been signed to star as Pamela Voorhees at Crystal Lake, and this is big for a couple reasons. One, we got Pamela Voorhees, and two, I think a lot of us thought, okay, is this show going to have? I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, Nick, wasn't there a time where they said this was dead in the water? Or
There
am I
was
making that up?
no, there was, but it was because it was changing creative hands.
Yeah.
Who was it that was initially the showrunner? Was it Brad
Brian Fuller.
Brian
Fuller.
Yeah, Brian Fuller.
Yeah. And then that changed. And then there was like no news on it for a little bit there. And the rumors started circulating like, oh, this might be like DOA.
Yeah.
And then a couple months later, I don't know who did damage control, but somebody did damage control. Like, oh, no, it's actually not. And we're not having to rework much of anything at all. And I was like, yeah, it smells like bullshit because we still don't have anything. Well, today's casting announcement makes it clear that the rumors from 2 years ago, when this thing was even announced about it being a Pamela-centric prequel, have been true. I don't know what was different about Brian Fuller's pitch. I know they had to rework some of it, but as they say, it wasn't that much. We'll see. Yeah, it was DOA there for a minute. I think a lot of people, and I think all of us can speak to it, being in this space for a while, you get jaded anytime you hear anything Friday the 13th. You're like, okay, yeah. And then pigs are going to come out of my ass. Like because you just don't think it's going to happen. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I went live on this one a couple times because it's been 2.5 years now since they announced this thing was happening. And yeah, they said they had to replace the executive producer. They're like, we're not going to have to change much. And then they're like, we're actually like starting pretty much from the ground up. Was one of the last things I've heard. And we've had 2 Friday the 13th since they replaced the showrunner and they gave us nothing. So I do think that this is big news because when somebody of Linda Cardellini's caliber finally gets attached officially, it does sound like we're going to get something. Now, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get anything by Jason's birthday this June. It will be his, he'd be like 75 or something like that, because I think he was born in 58 or something like that. So yeah, by June 13th, maybe we'll have a teaser by then, and maybe we'll have a show by the fall. We'll see. Let me this thing's got potential.
Yeah, definite potential. I mean, you don't sign somebody of that caliber and not be serious. So I think because of this announcement today, I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to have Crystal Lake, which is really, really exciting. So after early reports that Peacock's Friday the 13th prequel series, Crystal Lake from A24, may have found its Mrs. Voorhees last month, it's now official. Linda Cardellini has officially signed on to star, Deadline reports today. The series version of Pamela Voorhees is believed to be a mother who had given up on a singing career to raise a special needs child and takes a dark turn when she loses her son. Betsy Palmer played Mrs. Voorhees in the original film, revealed to be the killer behind the camp counselor slayings in the retaliation for the drowning of her son, Jason. Brad Caleb Kane is the showrunner for Crystal Lake. In addition to Kane, executive producers of the series include A24 Victor Miller, who wrote the screenplay and the franchise's original 1980 film. Miller's copyright attorney Mark Toberoff.
I love that.
Robert
his lawyer.
Yeah. Like what? The project will mark A24's first major IP-driven project amid a recent effort to expand in a more commercial direction. So I think this is happening now, and I'm sure you guys probably agree with me. Let me ask you guys this, because this is the big thing. Aside from is it happening, the big controversy I always hear from this series is either you want it or you don't, and the obvious reason is because do we want to tell the story of Pamela Voorhees and not have a hockey masked Jason in there, or do we want to hit the ground running with a hockey masked Jason in a TV series? Nick, what's your opinion on that? Or do you even care?
I mean, I care. I'm not the biggest. I've never been in love with Friday, and
Right.
I get crap for that. I've always said Halloween and Nightmare, in my opinion, are far better, but that's my opinion.
Yeah.
But my favorite Friday movies, I love those movies, and funny enough, they're the ones with Jason, not with Pamela. Now, that's not to say that that wasn't a good twist. It totally was in the first movie, and I like the first movie well enough, but when they announced this, obviously with all the legal issues, you're wondering like, what are they even going to be able to use?
Mhm.
So that was a question in and of itself. And I was like, prequel, I don't know about that. And I can still say that I'm still like, I don't need a prequel that's going to focus on Pamela. I will say casting Linda Cardellini definitely kind of made me go, okay, like, I love Linda. She's my Velma. Okay.
Right.
I grew up with those Scooby-Doo movies. So like she's great in Grandma's Boy as well.
Hmm.
So like I think she's a really good actress. I think that a crazy Linda Cardellini is actually something that I'm like, that's kind of awesome. Like I kind of want to see
Mhm.
that. But then I'm at the same time, I'm just like, but I don't know if this isn't what I would have wanted after 15 years. This is not the route I would have gone in, but I understand the roadblocks that are there as well as anybody can understand them. And then my buddy Rudy, he made a good point. He was like, "Well, Bates Motel was awesome," and I was like, "Yeah, it was.
Yes.
I thought
You're
Bates
missing
Motel was
everything I
fantastic."
was gonna say. Damn
Yeah,
you, Nick. Go ahead.
I thought Bates Motel was fantastic. It's one of my favorite
Fantastic.
series ever. So I was like, yeah, you're right. When they announced that, I remember myself even being like, really? Do we need a Psycho prequel? And then by the time the show was over, I was like,
Oh my
please
god,
don't
so
end.
good.
Like, yeah. And not spoiler alert. I won't get into details, guys, but if you haven't seen Bates Motel, because you're like, it's a prequel to Psycho, it is until it isn't. So I would advise you to watch it. It's great. It really is.
Mhm.
But so I'll take what I can get here. But I guess I'll be all right if we get Camp Crystal Lake, if we get some of that Harry Manfredini score, and we get crazy Linda Cardellini. I guess I'll take it.
What do you think, Davey?
Yeah, I think this could be really interesting because, I mean, like J.G. Michael says there, the elephant in the room here is that horror fans may like a Pam Voorhees story, but mainstream audiences don't care about Mrs. Voorhees and only want to see Jason. But I do think that mainstream audiences really like television shows. And so
Mhm.
I think that this idea of if you do a limited series, I don't think it should be too long in the tooth. I'm thinking like 3 years or something and have it ramp up to a film version where we finally, maybe they can work out the rights. We do get that hockey mask version of Jason come the films. But I do think this is a really interesting opportunity to explore Pamela's character because we don't really know much about her. Over the last couple years, when I was, have been rewatching these movies, it dawned on me like when Pamela she's telling Alice what happened to Jason, and you see a little like vision come up of Jason like drowning in the lake, and I'm like, oh, well, this makes me think that like Pamela was there and like saw this
Mhm.
happen. And so I started thinking, what if she either made it happen or let it happen, had some sort of psychotic break, blames the children, goes after the children, but really in her heart of hearts, it became that being Jason's mother was too much for her and she snapped. And so I
Yeah.
think it'll be interesting to sort of explore, are we going to get a version of Pamela that is like a sweetheart that suddenly snaps, or are we going to see something that's a little more sinister that's been there the whole time, a la Bates Motel, which is, kind of the direction that takes. And I'm really excited for like a period piece. I know that'll be a little bit expensive, but I think that could be really fun. And yeah, Linda Cardellini, like you said, for her to, if she goes batshit here, that's something we really haven't seen from her. And that would be cool. I always love watching performers stretch themselves and do things they haven't done before. So I'm hopeful. And whereas like 6 months ago, I didn't know if this show was really going to happen, but now I believe it.
Yeah. This is confirmed to be a period piece, right?
It's got
Or
to be,
no?
right?
Yeah, well, because this would be when Jason died, right? So
Well, I mean, they could do a modern day version and
they
him die
could.
now and go forward. But
Lee's got a good point. They actually have not said that it would be a period piece. So what if
yeah.
they are doing that, like modern day retelling?
Mhm.
If that's the case, so I do not want it.
Yeah, I
just
want
gonna
to
say
hear
that right
these
now. I don't
really
want
bad. I think here's what I think is going to happen, and I could be totally wrong, but I think Jason is going to drown at the end of the first episode. I think they're going to set things up, show you who Pamela is as a person, what makes her tick, show you her love for her son, Jason. They're going to build Jason up to make you fall in love with him. And then Jason he's going to drown at the end of the very first episode. And then that's going to set her off throughout the rest of the season. I'm guessing it'll probably be like 8 episodes, 6 episodes, something like that. And we're going to see the unraveling of Pamela and her wanting to get revenge for her son. I've always said, even long before, like years before they even announced this show, I've always said I would love a Pamela centered story, because when I saw the original Friday the 13th, I always thought Pamela was scarier than Jason. Like, she really freaked me out, especially when I was a little kid when I saw this movie. And for some reason, I had this weird thing where, like, when she's going at it with Alice at the end of the movie, for some reason, I felt like I saw black blood. I don't know why. When you're a child, you have just the weirdest thoughts in your head. And that freaked me out. It scared me to death. I was like, oh, her. And it could have been because my TV was just so damn old and and dark, and her blood looked black. But yeah, man, Pamela's always freaked me out. And I think if you're wanting to stretch out a TV series, I think Pamela suits a TV series better than Jason, whereas Jason, he suits a movie better. And you can have your cake and eat it too. Like, you can have this series and they could still greenlight a Jason movie that doesn't necessarily connect with this. The two could be just their own thing, because we haven't had a Jason movie since 2009. So, I would expect we're not going to see a Jason announcement, anytime soon, because of course they want to keep all their eggs in this basket. But I'm really excited for this, to be honest. I think the potential is there. I think Bates Motel was a phenomenal show, and if they can repeat the template of that type of show, and what made that show work so well is just you really dug into the characters, and especially Norma Bates.
And Freddie Highmore and Vera Farmiga were fantastic in it. They were genuinely incredible. But I just wanted to ask you guys, without getting into details on it, because I know there's people that said they hadn't finished it. So vaguely ask you, what did you think at the end of Bates Motel when they did the old switcheroo? And they were like, just kidding. Did it piss you off? Or were you like, you know what? I kind of dig that this was its own kind of self-contained thing. Because I wasn't upset. I was like, you know what? I'm okay with that. I mean, you guys, you remember, right? You remember what they do, right?
I was going to say, I don't remember the exact ending because it's been years since I saw the show. I just remember how intense and dark the show got. And I remember loving the ending.
They don't leave it open for it to be connected to Psycho. I'll say that. And so the entire time you're watching these 5 seasons, you're like, okay, this is going to end with Norman being where he is and Mother being where she is. And hey, we're going to jump to Psycho. And then it ends and it's like, no, we're not. And I know some fans were like, wait, what the hell? But I was cool with the alternate universe, like Norman Bates. Like, what if things went differently? So yeah, I would recommend going back and rewatching it. I rewatched it last year. I know it's a tall task because it's 5 seasons, but it's worth it. Anytime I go back and rewatch this stuff, I have to start from the beginning, and I hate myself for it because I'm like, this is going to be weeks of my life, but I have to do it.
Yeah, I don't know if I made it all the way through the end because it started to sort of lose focus and become about the other stuff going on, and I was like, why does TV always do this? Where there's the pot farm and the corrupted police in town and everything. I was like, TV just always tries to stretch stuff out. But with going back to Pamela really quick, I had Vincent DeSanti on the channel last Friday. We watched A New Beginning to celebrate the 40th anniversary. And he has a really cool idea where he's like, I want to see a Pamela that's basically she's been a good person her whole life. The one mistake she made was, she got pregnant outside of marriage or whatever. She had this disadvantaged child. She goes to the camp to find refuge because the whole rest of her world, her family and everything have basically ostracized her. So she goes to Crystal Lake looking for a safe place for Jason and herself, and everything is going great. But then once the tragedy happens, this is like a camp with like well-to-do kids, and the people that run the camp are like, well, we can't hold these kids responsible. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Like, it's going to affect everything for them moving forward. And so once again, she's faced with like, now she's being left holding the bag and no one's there to support her in her most like desperate time. And that's what breaks her. And so, I mean, if you guys know Vin, you know that he's he knows his Friday the 13th shit. And I was like, that sounds really, really good. And it sounds like he's still lobbying to be involved in some regard with the Crystal Lake TV show. So I doubt he would have any impact on the story, just because they're probably set in their ways on that one. But they could certainly stand to benefit from having somebody like him around.
And I'm certain he would have, at this point, been involved in something to do with Friday the 13th if there hadn't been all these legal roadblocks for the last 2 decades. Like, I'm sure there would have been something for him, which is a bummer. Absolutely. It really, really is a bummer for him. But for a lot of the fans. But yeah. I mean, it's cool. Like, there's a lot of cool possibilities from this. I don't want to sound like a wet blanket. I'm going to give it a chance. I think it sounds like all three of us are going to. But we also, I think all three of us agree that we wouldn't be surprised if it just comes out and it's just kind of ho-hum. Like, it came and went. And, whatever. I'm ready for Jason now. So we'll see which way it goes. But I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? Lee, you brought up a good point. You said you think in the first episode we're going to see the drowning of Jason. So you think that we will get a child Jason? It won't just pick up that he has just died and this is the fallout? Because I personally think we need to see that. I do. Yeah. I think it'll help with her character and selling it to people that may not know shit about this.
No, I think we need to get to know Jason just a little bit, as a child, just to kind of get an idea of who he is as a character. Just establish that bond between him and Pamela. The only other way you could do it is if he's already dead when the show starts, then they would probably do some flashback type stuff along the way, just to kind of, and they might even do both, who knows? And, as much as I say I love Pamela, the show still has to bring me over. We could be by, episode 3, episode 4. And then I'm like, okay, now I really miss Jason, like adult Jason.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I've always said Friday the 13th, even though Halloween's my favorite franchise, Friday the 13th is the ultimate comfort cinema for me. Like, I can throw in any Friday the 13th movie. Like, I threw in freaking Jason Goes to Hell, one of the most hated ones recently, and I had a blast. I just love putting those movies in the background, doing whatever I'm doing around the house, and they're just comfort cinema.
Absolutely.
Halloween's my baby, but I can't throw in Halloween every day. I can't throw in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 every day. I have to. I gotta be ready for it, right?
It's a little heavier, whereas Jason is definitely like the carnival food of horror.
What do you guys mean? Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 doesn't make you feel good?
It makes me feel like I need a hug and a role model. But
I think they'll kill off Jason about halfway through the first season. I think they're gonna give us some time, and it'll sort of be like the mid-season finale. They really are gonna let us get comfortable, and they don't, like, if he dies in the first episode, I think it might just be like, oh, he's gone already. But I think if we're sort of left anticipating when that's going to happen, I think that could create intrigue for that first season.
Well, hello there. You just watched an outrageous clip from the Hit the Bricks podcast. I really hope you enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more clips, you can click here or you can click here. And you can just have yourself a ball, all right? And also follow the Hit the Bricks podcast on Spotify as well. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful day.